Hello, fellow flute teachers and colleagues. I've been getting some questions about how I'm running chamber music, and I wanted to take some time to share some of that information with you because I figure it could be of use and help to everybody as we're navigating this different type of teaching and learning style for our studios and our students in general. So, chamber music is something that is very important in my studio, and it's something that I've always done. And I wanted to figure out a way to make this happen right now while we're doing lessons online as opposed to meeting face to face. And as we're all discovering, this process of teaching online is much more work on our end, more than people probably realize, especially those people who are taking the lessons, not giving the lessons. So for chamber music, what I've been doing has been very hands off and hands on. So the back end of making this program work for my studio has really been about me making recordings and using things to help facilitate their learning process as we're doing this. So I've been doing two main things. First of which, I have some students in my groups. There are 5 ensembles total, but there are certain students who I know will need a little bit more help and guidance. So for those students in particular, what I'm doing is I'm creating YouTube tutorials that I'm sharing with them of me actually going over their part at a slower, reduced rhythm with a metronome running so that they can use that video as a way to help practice and learn their part on their own right now. And I think that's really important to do. You know your students and you know who would need that versus who doesn't. But it's a really good way to help them learn their part right now so that when we are meeting face to face, they will actually be more ready to go and make more use of the rehearsal time that we have together. So I'm not doing that for everybody. Again, I only have a few students who I feel like would benefit from that. So for those ones in particular, I'm taking the time to go ahead and make those individual tutorials for them. For all of the groups themselves, what has been the most time consuming, but I think the most beneficial, has been using the acapella app to make different types of recordings for each group that I have. So for my younger chamber music ensembles, especially groups that really have only been meeting for a year or less, what I'm trying to do and what I am doing is using the acapella app. I'm recording, like, let's say their trio. I'll record their full trio or a section depending on what I want to get done, but I found it's better to just kind of do the whole piece so it's over and done with. But I'll record that particular trio with me playing flutes 2 and 3 with part 1 missing, and then I'll do it again with me playing parts 1 and 3 with flute 2 missing, and then 1 and 2 with flute 3 missing. And I send those videos to the whole group with the intent that they can practice their parts with the video, fitting it into the other parts so that they can actually rehearse on their own at home as opposed to meeting in a group format. I don't do that for every group, but I am doing for the ones that are less experienced or for pieces that are more difficult to fit together, where I feel like the members of the ensembles would benefit from having the ability to practice their parts with the other ones missing. For my more experienced groups, I'm simply just recording their full trio or quartet with all of the parts happening simultaneously because they're a little bit more advanced or they've been playing small ensemble music for a while, which makes it easier for them to just practice the parts by listening to the recordings. Now, we certainly could just use existing recordings on YouTube, but I found it better to just make them myself because I might want to record them at a slower speed and then at a middle speed or a faster speed, or the recordings that I'm making are going to have the nuances in them that I want as opposed to other groups having played them online. So it really kind of depends on what your personal preferences are. If you don't have as much time to invest in making this work, you certainly can reference recordings that already exist to help out your students with learning the parts. So that's what I'm doing on the back end. Again, recording individual parts as needed, but also using the acapella app to either make full recordings or music minus 1 parts for the members of the groups to practice on their own. Regarding the actual group meeting itself, I meet every other week with my chamber groups, and I just rotate who's meeting when so that they always have 2 weeks off in between rehearsals. That's how I do it face to face, so I'm keeping that going in the same format where we're meeting online. And we basically just set up a Zoom meeting for all of my chamber groups, and I have them all share the same meeting so that I don't have to send out invites and whatnot, and they each come in at their prescribed times. So what we're doing, you can't really have people play at the same time right now, so we have to innovate ideas around that in order to make a rehearsal actually worthwhile. And this is what I'm doing to make it worth everybody's time. So when the meeting starts and I'm working with a group, what I actually do is we just kind of chit chat and socialize a little bit because I think that's a very important part of chamber music. You want to provide opportunities for your students to interact with one another. So I have everybody come in and just chat with each other for a few minutes, and then we just get down to work. So the first thing I do is I make everybody grab a pencil while we're setting up to make sure that they have it on hand. And I pick like a third of the piece or a fourth of the piece. And what I do is I look at the score and I present the information to all the ensemble members about who's playing what part with who, when and where and whatnot. So, flute 1 and 2 have kind of a duet passage for these 8 bars. I point that out to them and ask them to write down who they're playing with, and so on and so forth. So, if 1 and 4 play together, or 2 and 3. And then I also point out who has the main line, who should be a little bit more dominant. And then I also point out who should be a little bit under the main line and be a supportive role. And once I go through whatever section I decide is going to be enough for that rehearsal, I have everybody, confirm that they wrote everything down. And then I use one of the recordings that I made already, and I actually have everybody else in the meeting go on mute except for myself, and I play the recording live for them over the meeting. And what I ask them to do is the first listen, we have everybody kind of identify the stuff I pointed out to them to hear how it works and what I was talking about, where their lines fit and who they're playing with. And then once I've done that, I have everybody in the meeting put themselves on mute, and I ask them to play along with the recording live. So that works really well because they, one, they're listening to the recording, and two, they can play and do whatever they need to do on their own end. You can watch them and see what's happening. You obviously won't be able to hear them all playing at the same time because you have them on mute, but you can see who's getting it and who's struggling with a certain section or who might be totally fine. And, if you notice somebody's not keeping up with the recording, then that's somebody you might want to reach out to in a lesson or make a tutorial for them on their own part individually so they can use that on their own. And once we've done that, and we've listened to it, and I've kind of visually identified who might need more help, and I point that out later. I don't single them out in the meeting itself. I have everybody come off of mute, and I just go through the sections we just talked about, simply asking each person to round robin take turns playing things that I know that I need to hear. So I'll have Flute 1 play an 8-bar phrase, and then I'll give them feedback and maybe make them play it again and correct any errors that I hear. And then I do the same thing for Flute 2, Flute 3, and then Flute 4. And I also ask the students that while I'm working with the other student, one, to keep it quiet. I don't feel like they have to be on mute. I was able to control it without it. But I ask them to kind of go through their part while the other student's playing so that they can start to identify how their part might fit together with Flute 1 versus 2, 3, and 4, or 1, 2, and 3 if you're doing a trio. And that pretty much takes up a full rehearsal slot. So it really went faster than I thought it was going to. So you have to be pretty diligent about having a plan mapped out for how you want the session to go. But that really is a way for us to all meet and work together to give them a chance to interact, so that when we are meeting again face to face, it's going to be a lot easier for them to rehearse and get things done quicker. So I'm kind of using all of this in all of our meetings right now, is laying the groundwork to make things go smoother when we're meeting in person again. That's pretty much it. So I hope that is helpful for you. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Send me an email. You can send me a message on Facebook. And I'm also available should you want to work one-on-one or have any consultations regarding the actual teaching of private lessons versus running small ensemble programs right now online. I'd be available to meet with you if you were interested. Same thing, just send me a message if that is something that you are interested in. So I hope that everybody is having a good time learning all of these new things and how we can be better teachers and educators, and to be there for all of our students right now in the best ways possible that we can. So thank you so much. I hope this was helpful. Again, please reach out to me if you have any questions or you wanted some help in getting some other things set up. Thanks so much. Have a good one, everyone.